Only in Kentucky can a single county claim the last home of Daniel Boone, a prison escape masked by a violin, and a violent rural uprising caused by turnpike tolls. Hi, I'm Michael, and I'm learning a little bit more about Kentucky, one county at a time, all 120 of them. And today, I'm learning about Nicholas County. Nicholas County sits in the northeastern central part of the state. The Licking River forms the northern boundary, carving out a deep valley, and the elevation drops to roughly 565 feet where the river exits. Today, the population of the county sits at around 7,500 residents. But human history in this area stretches back over 11,000 years, drawn by a geological anomaly at the lower Blue Licks. Groundwater filtered through subterranean rock and pushed to the surface, emerging with high concentrations of dissolved salts. Long before human settlement, this mineral lick attracted megafauna, so mastodons and prehistoric bison migrated to the springs in massive herds. Well, indigenous hunters followed those animal trails. Near the modern community of Moorefield, an excavation took place in 1925 at a site known as the Clay Mound. Digging into a structure measuring 60 feet in diameter, researchers unearthed a highly organized Fort Ancient Culture mortuary site. They recovered the remains of 13 individuals alongside over 1,000 funerary objects. The artifacts included intricately carved marine shell pendants, indicating a sophisticated society with complex trade networks extending to the ocean. In 2024, federal repatriation records formally linked these remains to the Shawnee. When European explorers pushed over the Appalachian Mountains in the late 18th century, salt was the most precious commodity on the frontier. Without refrigeration, pioneers relied entirely on salt to preserve meat for the long winters. Whoever controlled the salt springs controlled the lifeblood of the local economy. A pioneer named David Tanner recognized the enormous economic potential of the lower Blue Licks. Around 1784, he established a fortified settlement called Tanner Station directly over that spring. The fort protected the laborers who engaged in the brutal, exhausting work of boiling hundreds of gallons of river water in massive iron kettles to yield a single bushel of salt. The rugged beauty and abundant game of the area drew the most famous frontiersman in American history, Daniel Boone. Boone moved his family to Nicholas County in 1795, building a simple one-room log cabin on the brushy fork of Hingston Creek. Boone lived and hunted on the property for 4 years, but he was notoriously bad with paperwork and the intricacies of Kentucky's shifting land deeds. Frustrated by endless legal battles over his land claims, Boone packed his belongings in 1799, left his final Kentucky home behind, and moved his family to Missouri. That same year, the Kentucky General Assembly officially created Nicholas County, carving the territory from Bourbon and Mason counties. The legislation took effect in 1800. Lawmakers named the jurisdiction to honor George Nicholas, a Revolutionary War veteran, and the primary architect of the state's first constitution. The young county needed a center of government. Officials initially held court sessions in a log building at Blue Licks before establishing the county seat at a town called Ellisville in 1805. However, the location proved temporary. In 1816, a landowner named John Rittenkincart donated 50 acres of his property, including his family's peach orchard, to establish a brand new seat of government. He laid out streets and lots, eventually naming the town Carlisle, likely a nod to his father's hometown of Carlisle, Pennsylvania. So the courthouse moved, and the brief glory of Ellisville faded completely into history. With a new county seat came the need for infrastructure. Around 1820, the county built a jailer's home, eventually adding dungeon-like stone jail cells directly beneath the residence. Conditions in the lower cells were so grim that they earned the nickname the Black Hole of Calcutta. But, the setup was far from foolproof. Records show that at least 2 prisoners managed a daring escape when one inmate played the violin to mask the noise while the other dug a hole straight through the solid rock wall. Places like Barefoot and Hooktown popped up at rural crossroads. A settlement called Headquarters earned its name as either an early trading post or perhaps a corruption of the word headwaters, as it's situated between the sources of 2 local streams. Further south, the community of East Union took root around 1800. The village once bustled with a gristmill, a physician, and a post office originally named Bramlett. It became a center of the region's intense religious revivals. A well-known evangelist named Peter Hahn preached at the East Union Christian Church, spending his life traveling the hills and baptizing an estimated 5,000 number of people. The church survives today as the second oldest active Christian church in the United States. The region's churches also played a quiet role in the fight against slavery. In 1817, a young minister named John Rankin arrived to preach at the Concord Presbyterian Church. Rankin was fiercely opposed to the institution of slavery, and during his 4 years in Carlisle, he helped lay the groundwork for what would become the Underground Railroad. Local history maintains that certain homes in Carlisle, such as a modest house on West Chestnut Street, served as safe houses, providing a momentary resting place for enslaved people. As the 19th century progressed, the county's survival depended entirely on the movement of goods and people. The ancient Buffalo Trace connecting the Ohio River port of Maysville to the inland markets of Lexington cut directly through Nicholas County. It was one of the most important travel corridors in the Trans-Appalachian West, but dirt roads turned into impacting the winter and spring thaws. In the 1830s, engineers transformed the route into the state's first stone highway. Workers broke stones by hand, layering crushed angular rock over a graded roadbed. The stones locked together under the weight of passing wagons, creating a hard, well-drained surface that was revolutionary at the time. To pay for this massive infrastructure project, private toll road companies erected toll booths along the route. The Maysville to Lexington Turnpike featured 13 toll houses spaced exactly 5 miles apart. The road did bring a steady stream of wealth and traffic through Nicholas County. Thomas Metcalf, a stonemason who later served as the 10th governor of Kentucky, built an estate along the route in 1814. And actually, when statesman Henry Clay the property, he reportedly looked around and declared, "Tom, you have a veritable forest retreat here." The name stuck. Forest Retreat operated as an elite residence, a stagecoach stop, and a tavern, capturing the commerce that flowed along the highway. But the turnpike system eventually sparked a fierce rural uprising. By the 1890s, the physical roads had deteriorated, yet the private companies continued to charge tolls to the local farmers who simply needed to transport their crops to market. Frustration boiled over into the tollgate wars. Across central Kentucky, bands of armed, masked men conducted highly coordinated night raids. They chopped down the wooden toll gates, burned the toll houses to the ground, and even threatened the collectors. The localized violence effectively crippled the private road system, forcing county governments to purchase the turnpikes and abolish the gates. One of the last surviving toll houses from this era still stands in Nicholas County. Following the Civil War, the county's logistics evolved once again. In 1871, the Lexington and Maysville Railroad laid tracks through Carlisle. The railroad was absorbed into the massive Louisville and Nashville system in 1891, fundamentally shifting how freight and passengers moved through the region. A brick passenger depot built in 1912, after an earlier frame structure burned to the ground, anchored Carlisle as the undisputed commercial heart of the county. Today, Nicholas County remains a rural community. The economy relies heavily on public sector employment and traditional agriculture work. Local leadership continues to focus on improving the roads that connect the county to outside markets. In 2024 and 2025, the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet conducted a comprehensive corridor study for Highway 32 through Carlisle, presenting engineering concepts to modernize the route while still preserving the town's historic footprint. The county also leverages its environment for recreation. In 1961, the Nicholas County Development Corporation impounded a local waterway to create Lake Carnico. The 150-acre reservoir provides public beaches, boat ramps, and fishing access tucked neatly into the rolling hills of the county. And for a completely different kind of outdoor experience, you can head to Wentz Wildlife Adventure. This locally owned zoo brings an unexpected array of global wildlife to this rural Kentucky landscape, featuring kangaroos and camels, sloths, and an interactive parakeet encounter. The zoo property actually sits pretty much on the exact same land where Daniel Boone once hunted. Today, if you want, you can interact with those exotic animals just really a stone's throw away from Boone's painstakingly restored 1795 log cabin. And just down the road, the county boasts a unique piece of modern craftsmanship. In 2016, the crew of the Discovery Network television show Barnwood Builders constructed the Abner's Mill Fellowship Chapel. They built the stunning structure using reclaimed logs from old pioneer cabins across the region and salvaged stained glass windows from the early 1900s. Since 1946, American Legion Post number 17 has sponsored the Blackberry Festival on the Courthouse Square. It's the longest continuous festival in the state of Kentucky, and that legacy of the ancient salt spring is preserved at the nearby Blue Licks Battlefield State Resort Park, which honors the final desperate battle of the American Revolution. So, that's Nicholas County. What did I get wrong this time?